The opinions, viewpoints, and beliefs presented on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the management, the affiliates and broadcast partners, or the sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Scarefest!
The guests of Scarefest Radio are selected and scheduled independently of the Scarefest Horror and Paranormal Convention. Appearances on this program do not necessarily reflect the itinerary of the convention.
And hello everyone, and welcome to Scarefest Radio, the behemoth that it is. Original broadcast date, quit laughing, Chris. The original broadcast date is June 1st, 2018. Hey, buddy, we got Scarefest Radio plastered on all the banners now, all the promotional materials. Excellent. It's just like it's like we've been found. All of a sudden, although everybody lost their plausible deniability and said if we're gonna let's put some lipstick on this pig. That is what I'm convinced that they decided.
Right. Because we are the vanguard of the Scarefest.
That is
bringing the words to the people.
Think about it. For the last several years, I've been the voice of the Scarefest, but now we're like the faces of the Scare. Isn't that the scariest shit you've ever heard in your life?
Yeah,
we are you, I, and Ken are the faces of the Scarefest.
Hey, it could be worse, I suppose.
Yeah, I'll have to think on that. Everybody, of course, you are listening to Scarefest Radio, or you might be watching. I keep forgetting we got TV now. Our guest tonight is Beth Darlingrton. She's been coming to Scarefest forever. From Australia. You people that bitch about the drive from Louisville can suck it. So there.
That drive from Australia is really a bitch.
Yeah, you gotta keep your windows rolled up like 2/3 of the way. Yeah, it's hard. She is speaking. She's presenting. Her first time presenting at the Scarefest this year. Her speech will be demonic possession, possible alternative explanations, and we're just going to have fun even how we ended up with that topic, because I'm going to say it right now before I even get into the interview, Beth. I have said it 100 times. You could walk in that room and read from the damn phone book, and I would listen to every word that you said.
Yes, he would. He loves your voice.
I disagree. There is something about Australian and British accents that make. First of all, you sound like 10 times smarter than those of us in Kentucky, and it was interesting when you were announced that you were speaking. All the people that came on and said, "Oh, I enjoy talking to her so much when she comes." And I'm thinking, yeah, you're standing there listening to that lilting Australian accent, and she's probably talking about her experience in the bathroom, and you're still just, you're hanging on every word.
Oh, that's exactly it.
That's a lovely...
You've stolen my secret.
Wes, that's a lovely welcome. I had something else in mind for our friend here, and you can see it. And welcome, lady.
Oh, a beautiful Australian flag.
My little Australian flag.
Oh, I feel so warm and humbled and so welcomed. Thank you.
I didn't even know they had those at the Dollar Tree. Anyway. Before we'll get into the interview in just a moment, I do need to add, for those tuning in, yes, we do in fact have an actual top-notch, get excited, pull your big girl panties up type of celebrity announcement tonight. So it will be worth listening to beat the other online announcements by a good 5 minutes. I might announce it at like quarter after, just so we've got a real scoop going on. Because last week, by the time I went through my bullshit at the half-hour mark, they already had it up on Facebook before I think I even said the name. So tonight we're going to announce at quarter after, because I've already told them not to tweet it until 9:35.
And they always listen to you.
This is true, Chris. This is true. Okay, on to the interview, everybody. Beth Darlingrton. Okay, now, anytime I know the guest, I start off by picking a bone with them, Beth.
Excellent.
He does.
And I keep moving the wrong way. I'm not used to doing picture-in-picture. Sorry, viewers. I've got to get used to which side of Beth I'm sitting on. Now, here's the thing. You probably could have spoke. When did you change your name from Beth Luscombe to Beth Darlingrton?
Oh, probably just after I went to Scarefest last year in September.
Okay.
I was afraid to mess everybody up.
I was afraid that I had totally dicked up your chances of speaking for like the last 2 or 3 years because I was recommending you under Beth Luscombe, and this year I said, does Beth Luscombe get to speak? We do not have a application from Beth Luscombe. And I went, she told me she sent it in. So I get back on Twitter with Beth and say, they say they don't have your application. She said, well, I better resend it. And then finally we find, yes, just by coincidence, seminar crew, I happen to know 2 Beths in Australia. Yeah, that want to speak at Scarefest. That's the way that went down. So anyway, we got that straightened out. Beth, tell everybody a little bit about your background and about Access Paranormal.
Oh, well, sit back and relax. Grab a drink because I'll be a while.
Makes our job easier, love. Go right ahead.
You go chill out. Again, grab a cigarette, just turn to chill. Right, so me, I've been, like most people when it comes to paranormal topics, I've been interested for a long time. And only up until maybe about almost 10 years ago did I really kind of make it something at the next level, really want to be involved. And that all started when I was living in the UK. So I was doing the whole working, traveling thing and not really thinking, and the paranormal was going to really take off while I was there. But I started watching those shows. Yes, I was one of those people. And I started to get involved to the point where I thought, well, maybe there's a way in which I can actually go and do this myself. So I ended up, searching the internet for something to do on the weekend. And in the UK, it's enormous. It's huge. So many different venues, so many different places around the country. I was blown away. So I literally every month for 2 years, I was always somewhere investigating with a team or an event. And I loved it. I was getting right into it. I was finding all sorts of things happening, different types of activity would occur, all this kind of stuff. And I was enjoying it so much. And then, of course, I came to Australia. The tumbleweed rolled across the floor. I was like, hello, hello, hello. There was nothing like that at all. We had maybe 2 in Sydney that were ghost tours. There's one which is called the Rocks Ghost Tours because the Rocks is a very old part of Sydney. It's where the first Europeans landed somewhat. So, there was a ghost tour there, and I think there was another one at our quarantine station as well. And that was pretty much about it. And I was bitterly disappointed. There was nothing that was interactive. There was nothing that you could go in and, use equipment or learn or ask out. It was more about the history side of it, which is great. But I've just been spoiled to buggery in friggin' England. And then, of course, I come here, and I was just like, this is so super disappointing. So I thought, and there's nothing just for Australia at that point too. So there was a lot of great websites in the US, a lot of great websites in the UK, but nothing from just Australia or Australian teams or groups. No one knew anybody. I thought, I'm going to start something. And I was sort of brainstorming with a friend, and she's like, oh, I watched Access Hollywood the other day. I'm like, Access Paranormal. That's what it's going to be called. So I kind of just tweeted it. So, and that's what it's been. And it's been such a great name to have because it can venture off into so many different areas, which it has. So originally it started as a website for just, teams to know each other or workshops or seminars, and also like publications as well. And it's gone from there. It's gone more so from an online learning perspective, but from a global perspective as well. And I love traveling, as you know. I go to the States every year. I'm actually now going to start looking at going to the UK once a year as well in that. I probably am going to have to dance around the hat to get the funds to do it, but I will do it. And, really, I just, combine that love of travel and combine that love of learning about the paranormal, possible paranormal phenomena and ways in which other people investigate. So it's just taken from there. And I've studied online from the Wine Institute and the School of Parapsychology in London. So I'm really wanting to get my head around all aspects of it and help with better learning content for investigators around the world. So yeah.
Now, a very good question just came out of the chat room, which is highly unusual because it came from Jake. The out of all of the conventions all over the United States, how did you end up at Scarefest?
That's a great question, isn't it? Persistence. Persistence was probably more so, but Scarefest has this reputation around the world. So it's not just in the States. I mean, people in Australia, a lot of people in the paranormal in Australia know it very well. And I've been looking at wanting to go for a long time. And so I thought, one day I was like, I'm just going to do it. So bought the flights with the windows down in the car, drove along and made the trek. And I've done that. I think this is my 4th year in a row, I think, that I've been to Scarefest. So it's literally just building the connections, talking to people. People know who you are, and you're not some Joe Blow off the street that can, talk about shadow people. You've got your research, you've got your knowledge behind you, and you can actually present that as well. I think that's also been really helpful. And yes, that's how I kind of got my foot in the door, and a little bit of sprinkled a bit of Wes Forsyth in there, and I think that kind of just helped everything work. So
I am going to be perfectly blunt and honest with you. Knowing me does not cut any butter at all at the Scarefest. That has been proven to me over and over and over. However, because you happened to be out drinking with us the night that we had Brandon Griffith, the owner of the Scarefest, I think that was the key that unlocked the door, was getting drunk with the owner. So anybody, if you're not having any luck getting a speaking gig at the Scarefest, there you go. I guess Scarefest is, because you've been coming how many years?
I think this is the 4th year, or I could be wrong, but I think it's the 4th year, yes.
Okay. Because really, up until just the last few years, Scarefest was the big dog of paranormal cons. Now, a lot of really good, I don't mean that to be bragging, because in the meantime, it seems like a lot in the last few years, a lot of more conventions have got their shit together and are putting on some really top-notch conventions. So I'm thinking a few years back, it was the room 202 at the Holiday Inn in Sequoia, in Paracon. And so that kind of does clear it up, because we did have the big names. In other words, it was a high-profile event. Let's go ahead and kick off our first commercial break. Everybody, you're listening to Scarefest Radio. We're talking to Beth Darlington, Cody, Chris, and myself are. And just so you're ready, we're going to have a celebrity announcement here in just a minute. Do you feel lost in life? Do you seem to be stuck in emotions that are not yours? Is your home not the sanctuary it should be? Contact Spirit Mechanics, where they take a team approach to your metaphysical and spiritual problems. Spirit Mechanics specializes in aura cleansing, stone attunement, attachment removal, and house cleansings. Spirit Mechanics tailors their approach to your individual spiritual path and needs. Find them every month at Lexington, Kentucky's Mystical Fair, mysticalfairlex.com, or on Facebook by searching Spirit Mechanics, that's MECHANIX. Spirit Mechanics, for your spiritual health and well-being. And welcome back to Scarefest Radio. Our celebrity announcement for tonight, June 1st, 2018. Little build up there. You know him as Cupid in the hit TV movie Love Struck. We're announcing tonight Costas Mandylor. Costas Mandylor, of course, he's been in Virtuosity so many Saw movies that I'm just not even going to try to go through them. Residue was one of his big roles. He's been in just a ton of mainstream movies and horror. Blood Trap. I don't know a thing about that movie, but if it's called Blood Trap, it's got to be a horror movie. So we've got Costas Mandylor. He was somebody I couldn't recognize the name, but when I saw the picture, I said, hey, I know that guy. So, right there, that moves him up the scale on the IMDb page. Just that simple thing right there.
Yeah. I remember him from Picket Fences. Of course, wasn't horror, but it was a good show.
Oh, I didn't even notice this before. He played Demetrius on the Last Ship.
Yeah.
That's where I probably remember him from most recently, because I love The Last Ship. That was another reason I quit doing a show on Sunday nights, because I was having to miss The Last Ship. All the good TV shows were on Sunday nights, and here I'm trying to do a podcast against them, and I don't even blame people for not listening. It's
The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead was kicking your ass. I mean, it's.
Yeah. Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones. I was up. Never mind. Okay, we're back to bed. Chris, over to you.
Okay, so Beth, you start off in England. Let me get this all going here. You start off in England, and like the original settlers from Australia who sailed on the HMS Botany Bay, you come into Australia now. So it starts off as a prison colony, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much that's which is kind of a cool thing in England. We don't want you around anymore, so we're going to ship you off to Australia. And so you have this going on. You have this Aboriginal population, and who's just have a totally different, almost very similar to the United States or North America, where the Americans were there and the settlers came, and we won't go into all that. But you have this rich spiritual tradition already laid down there with the Aboriginal folks, and you get a new group of people coming in, and so to me, it just makes these things mingle. To me, I mean, that's one of the things I'm working on now, is about how this energy that the natives left behind or still have mingles with the spirits of this time. Is that something that you've come across? Or do you like investigate those blinds between the Aboriginals and the Australians?
Yes, it's. I would imagine it would be very similar to, like you mentioned, for in the States as well. Indigenous Australians are very guarded about talking about the afterlife. So that makes things really difficult for us as investigators to try and deal with cases. So it's obviously a lot of information is passed by word. It's not by written or through any artwork. Some artwork, but definitely all through verbal. So a lot of information can actually has been lost. But it's very, very, very guarded about the afterlife and their thoughts of what happens when ancestors pass over. So that makes it really, really difficult for us. But there have been cases here in Western Sydney where people have seen apparitions or claim to have seen apparitions of Indigenous people within the sort of bushlands of their backyards. Mm-hmm. And, you want to be able to help whatever or find out more, and it can sometimes be quite limiting. So I'm really lucky I do have a contact. She's very, very open about Indigenous spirituality. A couple of years ago, I think I even ran a talk session with her, and it sold out because so many people wanted to know. And she was, was quite open about it and was able to talk about it. And I've got some fantastic information from her, which has helped me deal with cases where someone feels that it is Indigenous energy that is at rest in someone's home. And having followed what she said has really helped as well. Yeah. And it's also, believe it or not, even when it comes to what we have as the Yowie here, which is kind of our version of Bigfoot or Sasquatch, and how the Indigenous Australians deal with Yowies as well, and how they interact and how their belief system with them as well. So even having knowledge of that's been really interesting to see whether or not there can be any sort of possible communication. Because remember, it hasn't, Yowies and Bigfoot hasn't been proven yet, but we're still looking at the possibility of it. So it's, from that perspective, that's been really helpful as well. So I think it's good to have really good connections as much as you can. But as we know, we're already up against it due to the way in which they have their belief systems.
And we have the same issues over here sometimes about sharing and practicing of native traditions and whatnot. So it can be difficult, but we see the same things where I've had people report to me that they see a Native American walking through their backyard, and it's usually in a place where there's been, of course, they've been all over the place. They were all over the whole continent, so it's not surprising you see those things. Is there any particular case involving that it's really sticks out, that stands out to you with an Aboriginal spirit?
Yeah. There was one particular case, probably about 5 years ago now, where we were in a house and this person, one of the things that they were reporting had been seen was an Indigenous sort of shadow. And I said, well, often when people talk about apparitions, it's a lady in a white dress, or it's the shadow man with a hat or something like that. So it was the first time I'd actually come across someone claiming that. It was nothing I had come across before. So I said, how can you tell the difference? What was the defining features? Was because sometimes it can be a shadow, sometimes actually be a full apparition. And then she said, no, it was an Aboriginal man in the backyard, and he stood there. He had his stick with him, and he just glared at her, and then he turned and disappeared. And it was on the boundary of her property at the time. So, and the property went into bushland. Now, of course, seeing that sort of as the sun was going down, someone disappearing in daylight was enough to rattle her quite a bit. But then, of course, she sensed that a couple of times he may have actually been looking through the window of her face as well. And she said, once I saw him, I could feel him around more. Yeah. So it was almost like this curiosity. There wasn't a threat thing at all. It was more of all right, you're here, I'm not really sure. And of course, I wasn't able to get in contact with the owners or the tenants previous to her to find out whether or not they had the same experiences. But a lot of people have moved in and out of this place. So maybe not, could be coincidence, we don't know. So yeah, that was one of the ones that, and I think because it was the first one, it was one that stood out the most. Yeah.
So when you investigate, I mean, you're probably the same as a lot of people. Everybody has kind of a favorite way of doing it. What's the process you use when you do an investigation?
Oh, for me, I largely base what I do on what is known as anomalistic psychology. So basically, it's a fancy pants way of saying I go in there with an idea of what's happening from a sort of a paranormal perspective, or what activity people are claiming is happening, and then look at rational explanations first. So it's debunking first beforehand, but I don't like using the word debunking, hence the title of the presentation, which is PAE, Possible Alternative Explanation. Sure. It's almost like the polite way of saying, because debunking is basis on the word bunker, which means to be fraudulent. So in other words, it's like saying because I'm trying to find a plausible reason, it means there was fraud at play at first. So that's why I think I really, and to me, I find myself going, I debunked this. No, change the terminology there. Gosh, remember, be part of the movement. So it's that kind of thing. But yeah, it really is just based on the logical side. Let's look at what could possibly cause this first before we even remotely look at a possible paranormal one. And the thing is, though, it's when you're dealing with clients, you've got to try and explain that to them in the sense that, look, I'm not saying that what you're experiencing, it could not be paranormal. I just need to find an explanation first. Are you comfortable with that? Is that something that you can go through the process with me? Because this is how I work. If you don't, I can refer you to someone who is more suited to the way in which you want this to be done. So not everybody's happy.
Well, because most people want to be paranormal. And they don't want to hear. They don't want to hear the other possibilities of what it could be. I mean, and I've found in my own experience, people that tend to have lots of problems, and they want to blame them externally. It's got to be something paranormal. So this happened to me. It's got to be I've got an attachment or whatnot. Now, do you use any gadgetry when you're going about your investigations?
Well, because I'm actually what I call myself an independent paranormal investigator, so I actually consult with teams and groups with their cases. So my equipment, I guess you could say, is quite small. So I have a video camera. I don't have a video camera. I say that. I have a video camera. I've got a voice recorder.
Right in.
Yes, she does, doesn't she?
So you keep it simple, guys. So no, it's literally it's video camera, voice recorder, torch. We call it torch. You guys call it flashlight. I know it sounds like we're burning people with torches, but no, it's flashlight. And literally that's anything to record what's happening in the environment. I do have a millimeter as well. I think they're quite good too because it's got the REM function on it as well. But I really just keep it very simple. But to me, it's more about recording what's happening around in the environment, who was in a certain area, what was happening at the time, and then see if that's able to capture what happened because it's more from an observation perspective, not necessarily just from a detection perspective. That's just my angle on it as well. I know other teams that are really into their gadgets, they're the X-cams and the Echo boxes and the apps and the this and that, and that's great. I'm not going to sit there and say, you shouldn't do that because I don't do that. It's just, go out there, try stuff out. It's the unknown. Let's have fun with it. Let's enjoy it. We do it because we love it. We should always try different stuff. But generally, yeah, I keep my equipment side of things pretty simple, yeah.
Yeah, so do you ever consort with mediums?
Occasionally I have.
Wait a minute,
Yeah.
consort?
It's like consorting with witches. I chose that word carefully too. I'll let you know.
But yeah, I do occasionally. I mean, if there is a paranormal team I'm working with, and they have a meeting, then obviously I will work with them as well. Generally, as I said, it's a case by case thing. I think some cases you may feel that there's the need to have a medium there. Sometimes the client really wants that.
Right.
But sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's something where it's like, well, actually, no, I don't really think there's going to be a medium needed for this. Yeah. And then we actually go without sort of thing. So it really just depends on the team. But I'm really flexible with that. I have worked with mediums in the past for sure. Okay. Yeah.
So you're kind of like, you'll go along with other people sometimes. It just kind of depends. Yeah, okay, that's good. So you're open to all different things. And yeah, that's kind of way to go. Yeah. So there are a lot of people watch the shows down there, and you go, I catch this all the time. It's like, well, we were watching Ghost Adventures. They had a demon in their basement. I go, oh, gosh. And so they think they have a demon in their basement. So do you get that kind of thing where they see this stuff on the telly and they're all freaked out? Oh,
yeah. And more so probably in Australia, because we really, a lot of the paranormal here, or the way that people look at investigating is based on those shows. And from the States, people might just walk around with American accents. So many people watching it. It's just crazy. You'll know a paranormal investigator because they sound like they're from America. But it's literally, they get very involved. Like, as you know, they see this is their first sort of, view of what it can be like, which we all know is not the case at all. Right. It's for entertainment purposes only. And like I mentioned earlier, I was one of those people. That's what started my interest in actually being more active. But, of course, reality hit, and I was still wanting to know more about it. I think sometimes with some people, as you may have mentioned or have come across, where people, once they realise it's not just this adrenaline, thrill, rushing, sort of scenario, they just kind of fall away, and that's fine, that's cool, whatever floats your boat. But for me, I'm in it for the long run.
Yeah, exactly. I find it fun, too, to just kind of be with different teams and see what they do and look at all the different ways of doing stuff. What is the most haunted, what do you feel the most haunted places in Australia?
For people who've been following me for a while will know that I have to call it an undisclosed location, so I can't even say where it is. But it had so many layers of what we thought was interesting spiritual stuff going on. Uh-huh. And this is probably what we could perceive it as such. There was an indigenous side of it. It was also a public building where there was lots of death in it, and then it changed into a mental health facility, and then it's just like it was almost a lasagna, and this and I think there's even something elemental possibly there, because there were things that people were seeing over the years and experiencing that. It was just this conglomeration. I call it, as I said, a spiritual lasagna. It was just literally layers of stuff there. And incredible experiences there. There was knocks and bangs, and so many times we thought someone had broken in. I was hearing people wheeling trolleys down a hallway, and we were the only people there, and just incredible stuff that it's the bucket list, it's the holy grail, but I can't tell you where it is. So that's the part that's annoying.
Can you tell us what territory it's in?
It's in New South Wales, where I'm
okay, well, all right. So. We'll start going door to door, Wes. Fine. But that's the thing about this place.
She could have said it was in China. It wouldn't have mattered to me. I don't know. I don't know any of it. Okay. I'm an American.
But that happens in those places. You're right. You've got the native presence, and all of a sudden they put stuff on top of it, and it's Wild West. It's just all out there. Lots of energy and lots of things happen, things like that. So it's so much fun, isn't it?
I love it.
Now, if I went to Sydney, where would be the place for me to go to?
Oh, well, there's a couple of really cool places, and a dear friend of mine runs tours and investigations through a lot of these places. Fabulous lady. Her name's Peter Banks. Runs Abbey Ghost Hunts and Tours, and she has a great cross-section of different locations all around Sydney. I would say Parramatta Jail would be the first one, because that's got a great history to it, and really has been quite active of late, apparently. There's Bella Vista House, Casula Powerhouse. I would say the Rocks as well, because it's just from a history perspective. And, of course, Quarantine Station, there's investigations run there as well from Oz Paratech. they do them too. So our quarantine stations is fantastic.
That just sounds like a great place.
Oh, so we've got a fabulous.
We're going to stuff you in quarantine station.
Yeah, that's right. I'll put you in quarantine station. You'll never get out. It's like disease. So like it's literally. It's a beautiful station anyway. I mean, because as you can imagine, being the first building or set of buildings in the harbour, you've got the most amazing views of the harbour there. You know, so as you're quietly dying from smallpox, at least you have amazing views. But you know, it's a great place. But yeah, Paracom Australia.
The atmosphere sucks, but it's an amazing view, huh?
Exactly. So it's but yeah, there are quite a few places around Sydney now. As I said, when I first got back to Australia, and I'm bitterly disappointed. There was nothing like this around. There weren't the investigations you can get involved in these locations. So that's why I'm always a big fan of supporting these, you know, ghost tour businesses, because they're opening up doors for us to be able to have access to that we normally wouldn't at all. So yeah, quite a few places.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's 1:30, and it's time for our next commercial break. So I'll hand it back to Wes.
Yes, it is time for a commercial break. Everybody will be right back. When we come back, we will do Twitter. We will do our contest tonight on Twitter. I will explain it when we get back. Everybody, you're listening to Scarefest Radio.
Coyote Chris Sutton.
Shamanism.
Spiritual advisement.
Paranormal investigations.
Inspirational presentations.
Bringing light to the darkest places for over 20 years. Go to coyotechris.com to learn more. And welcome back to Scarefest Radio. Of course, we've already done our celebrity announcement, but if anybody was cheating and only wanted to listen at the half-hour mark, suck it. No, Costas Mandalore. Costas Mandalore was our celebrity announcement tonight. But now it's time to give away a 3-day pass, which I still have not emailed out the last 2 months' worth. But I'll get to it, I promise. Tonight on Twitter, you will need to tag at the Scarefest at this. Now, I thought about using the hashtag adrenaline thrill rushing scenario, but no, I said nobody will get that right. So we're going with hashtag fancy pants. # fancy pants. Now you have to type fancy pants all together in one word so that we can get that right. But hashtag fancy pants at the Scarefest will get you a 3-day pass into the Scarefest, Scarefest 2018, Scarefest 11, Scarefest Rebirth. So that's going on. Chris, follow up for me, and I'm going to watch the computer just a moment, and then I'll take it over from you.
Okay. I know at one time, and it didn't only last this season or so, there was actually a paranormal show that originated from Australia. I think it's called Haunted Australia.
Yes.
Okay. Did you know much about what was going on with that, or did you ever meet any of the guys? Or
I do know some of them. I know they brought a couple of other international people as well. But I know a lot about what happened behind the scenes as well. So I can't really say much.
I know Rob Dimmer, so I want to hear this.
You don't.
Come on. I can't. Please, you got to tell me it's Scarefest then, so I can get to Rob. Okay, and I know there was not too long ago, one of the former cast members did commit suicide, and from my understanding, he's just a great guy. But that happens to some investigators, more than one. People, I don't know what happens, whether it's the nature of the constant ghost hunting or. Or it plays into other things in their life. And I know a lot of people have a lot of emotional things that they don't let out necessarily, and they can be affected during if you do a lot of ghost hunts, you run to the wrong places, and it can really affect you.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just also being aware that sometimes when, some people go into the paranormal or paranormal investigating to escape stuff that's already happening in their homes as well, where there's there could be a breakdown of a marriage or something like that, and people will actually turn more towards the paranormal and really get themselves involved in that too. It's almost like an escapism as well. So I sometimes think that can also happen too.
Yeah, rather than deal with our issues, we go and play with ghosts. And, most of the time, 99% of the time, it's all fun. It's no problem. But that 1% of the time, you can get hurt. I've seen it happen. And believe in ghosts or not if you want, but I've just seen too many things happen. And when I've been doing things to know that there is some negative energies out there that will turn you around if you don't have a good grounding, a good base in who you are as a person.
Yeah.
So always recommend that if you're going to do that stuff, you get out there and you make sure you're well grounded in what you're doing and who you are. And it's a big help.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have a winner.
Oh, who is it?
I want to say that this person, I actually had to turn around and look and make sure they weren't sitting in the room with me. Because before, they had already had the hashtag up before I even had the search page open to look for the damn hashtag Fancy Pants. Robin Jillians, and I believe that's a trifecta on that family. I think everybody in that family now has a 3-day pass. One by one, did it the right way, gamed us right. Yep. But Robin Jillians is our winner for tonight's 3-day pass.
I think she won last year. I think Robin won last year, too. I remember that name.
Like I said, I'm pretty sure the whole family.
Whole family, yeah, there was a whole bunch of them.
Definitely a repeat. But that's great. Thank you for playing, and thank you for doing it so damn quick, so I didn't have to sit here and beg for people to play our game. So end it though. Now, on with the show, as they say. Incidentally, the whole watching TV, and that's the way you investigate. People in the States do it too. That's how the ones that are a cut above Beth are the ones that go beyond that. But that's how I got into it too. I watched too much TV, que sera, and I really took it to the next level. Now let's talk a little bit about your presentation. Now I'm going to bore the listeners with my end of the story because she had turned in her main topic that she does at conventions, ghost hunting in Australia. Okay? Now, we're over here in the States, and it's not like that, it's ghost hunting, let's see what she has to say. Because she didn't get picked last year and whenever she turned it in, when I checked on it, they said, well, that's the topic she used last year. And I said, but she didn't give the topic. So, in other words, it can't be an old topic when you haven't given it. Now, all that being said, I said, use the word demonic. I said, what do you got on demons? And she came up with demonic possession, possible alternative explanations. Now, without not giving out too many spoilers, Beth, where does this little seminar take us?
Ooh, well, it's because whether you believe in demonic possession or not, it's a very severe experience for someone to go through. And a lot of, obviously, there's ideas about it with being caused by demons and demonic activity that someone's, invited to themselves. And this is a way to actually look at it. Well, take that away. Maybe if it wasn't demons, what else could be going on? So, like we mentioned before, it's based on this sort of a novelistic psychology side of it, where we're looking at, okay, someone may feel or could be claiming to be demonically possessed from whatever means. But what else could be going on that can cause that? That's not about spirituality. Let's look at it. Okay, what could cause somebody to have knowledge of a language that they never have studied previously, or to have deep growls, or sort of showing signs of superhuman strength? Like, are there other ways that this stuff can be explained? Can it actually happen to an individual? So we start to really look at pull it apart, look at the different characteristics, the parapsychological aspects of it as well, and say, okay, can this be explained by something else that we just haven't discovered yet, or it's part of science that we know at the moment? Are we getting carried away with the whole demon thing and not looking at it from a plausible explanation as yet? So and just breaking it down, and we'll look at cases as well. So we'll go through and a couple of interviews that people have had with other people, and we'll, as a group discussion, we'll go, okay, so what's happening here? What could be going on here? So really, really, and I always love keeping them interactive. There's no blah, blah, blahing at me, to you for 60 minutes. We get out there, and, no, as great as my voice is, no one wants to hear that for 60 minutes. It gets boring,
Well, especially over there.
So it's really good. It's learning as well.
Yeah. In Australia, she's Beth. What can we say? Now, let's go down this road just a second. Okay, when you're looking at a case that Of course, now, once again, I know it's just like when somebody says, my house is haunted. There's nothing you're going to do that's going to convince them otherwise. So I'm thinking when somebody says, I'm possessed, if they actually say that, then there's nothing short of an exorcism or checking them into a hospital that's going to change that. Do you, after you evaluate the situation and you come up with your own alternative explanations, do you follow up with the fact? I realize it'll depend on the situation, but do you ever follow up with clergy or with a medical doctor?
Yep, often it's with medical doctors. I've got a couple of connections with medical doctors here in Sydney that I actually converse with as well when it's come across a particular severe situation, which has been really handy because you'll find a lot of people in the medical field would look at what you're doing and not even give it a second look. You know, it's like you're talking about ghosts or you're talking about someone feeling possessed or something demonic. I don't even have the time for this. So it's very rare to find really good doctors that are open-minded in the sense that you want to make sure that this person, if they aren't being spiritually affected, that they're actually getting the treatment that they need. And that's why I'm also a huge fan of people gaining their mental health first aid. I'm a mental health first aider. I highly recommend it, not just for paranormal investigators, but also for people who run ghost tour businesses or public investigations, because it also covers where if someone's having a panic attack or an anxiety attack, someone might have seen something, they might not be coping with it, and you know how to help them through that initial stage until they can get themselves better again. So it's also that sort of semi-empowerment as well from an investigator perspective. Of course, you know, I also believe if you are a psychologist and you are also a paranormal investigator, don't mix the two. If you're there to investigate phenomena. If you're there as a psychologist, you're a psychologist. Don't do both. I think you need to be as subjective as possible. But so I think it's really important to have that empowerment as well, and a little also that detection. We are investigators, so we're going to want to know the signs and symptoms of mental illness, even just the basics of it. We don't, enough to be able to refer them to somebody who's going to help them, get the help that they need, the healing that they need. So that's equally as important. But yeah, I do often refer to more than likely medical professionals. I've never actually personally at the moment referred to clergy as yet. I've never at the moment come across a case where I felt it was actually a demonic case. But in saying that, because I'm not Christian or Catholic faith, I will never actually be able to witness an exorcism because I'm not considered spiritually strong enough to be in the room when it happens. Because once they cast out whatever is in the person, that will go to the weakest person, and I will be considered a spiritually weak person. So I write and study and learn as much as I can without actually knowing that I'll probably never be able to actually witness it myself. So from a demonic perspective, I've seen plenty of people possessed or claim to be possessed, but demonic, not as yet.
I would just think, now over here in the States, we could hook you right up. I'm sure I could have you lots of people that will say, hell yeah, I'll do an exorcism, and you take that chair over there. It's, so I'm sure that's not a problem. No, I do appreciate that viewpoint. How does, you may not know because you haven't, I don't know if you've had to cross that bridge yet, but now how does the clergy overall in Australia view the phenomenon we would call demonic oppression and possession and even demonology in general?
Probably the same as it would around the world. I think a lot of cases I get referred to are from people saying, look, we've had the clergy come out, cleanse the home, come out and we've requested an exorcism, but they just don't want to do it. I think it's almost like once they've opened that door, they're not sure what's going to happen. And I think for clergy to want to be involved, they really have to be ready for it. I think it's not just somebody you can actually go to, just, the church down the road. You've got to find somebody who either really is strong and wants to do it. And in Australia, we don't have the population as you do in the States, and we're few and far between. Most of us, 90% of us live on the coast. The inside is just too unbearably hot. Believe it or not, too hot for me.
And so everything will try to kill you.
Yeah,
exactly. That's it. That's
and the pigs drink all your beer.
They do. There is a pub out the back of New South Wales, like literally towards the border of South Australia, where if you have your beer on the ground, the pig will drink it. It knocks it over and just drinks it. Yeah, it's just Australia. So
God, that sounds great to me. I want to go.
Do they still have the meter maids in the bikinis, or have they outgrown?
Yes, they do. They do. I think they still do that. That's in the Gold Coast, up in sort of north. So yeah, they have to because they're in bikinis. It's white gold. So yes. Yeah, I would still do that. I would say
that yeah, I'd say that would explain that's probably where the name came from.
Yes.
Wes, you'd have thousands of dollars in parking fines.
Absolutely.
You would sit there and just wait for him to come by to give you a ticket.
I'd walk around knocking coins out of people's hands as they put them in the meter. I just, that's me.
You have a GoFundMe page.
Don't think I haven't thought about it for any myriad number of reasons. Now, okay, so the topics, it'll fit right in. It sounds very interesting, and of course, because it's coming out of your mouth, everyone will be hanging on every word. So, Chris, over to you.
Okay, gosh, let's see. We covered all this. You're not going to tell me anything about Haunted Australia, which I'd really love to know the dirt on that. But you're not going to tell me anything, are you?
No.
How about if I buy you a couple of shots at Scarefest?
Oh, it's getting warmer now.
All right, then. All right. I'll get that story out before end of that weekend. Then I'll go tell my buddy Rob. I got shit on you. So, I can see what you're saying about, finding actually, because priests shouldn't be doing exorcism unless they've been trained to do it. I always get scared of the ones that just, I can do that, and go throw some holy water around, and it may not be a demon. It's going to piss something off. Sometimes people are good-natured and want to try to help and muck things up worse than what they were. Have you ever had to go in there and put things back together again after somebody went in there and mucked it up?
Yeah, that has happened actually, and it's often where someone has felt that it's been a spiritual influence that's the reason why this stuff's happening in someone's home, and it actually hasn't been. It's when you've dug a bit closer and had a look further into what's been happening. There's been signs of drug use, and there has been signs of someone suffering bipolar, and it's like, okay, so. But then again, like we say, sometimes it's easier to believe something to be paranormal than to deal with reality, or it's there could be 50 different reasons why something is happening in someone's home where furniture could be moving. There's 50 different reasons you've got to explore. Saying it's paranormal is just one reason, and that's much easier to live with as well. So from that side, things take time to sort out. So that's the other thing as well. Some people are like, no, I know it's paranormal. It's like, well, if we need to look at this logically, I need to check this out. I need to go here. We'll have, a plumber come in for the piping if there's bangings, noises and things. That takes time. And some people just don't want that. They just want, it to be paranormal. But yeah, there have been times where I've had to go in and actually talk to them. And that's the thing also with having mental health first aid training is knowing how to approach mental health issues with somebody without making them feel like they're horrible or they're ashamed in any way. And it's a delicate dance, to sit there and say, look, I feel that this could be something else that's happening. You can't diagnose somebody. You should never diagnose. And you don't have the authority either. So it's a very, very difficult conversation. But once you've gotten used to it, you can understand and get used to the right words to approach with somebody. And it's duty of care too. It's the duty of care, making sure, saying, well, I'm doing this because I care about you having a resolution to your problem. So we need to look at all different avenues, and if that's the case, in going to your local doctor and having a mental health assessment just to check to see if anything's going on. It may not even be something mental health issue. It could actually have been something physiological going on. There could be something physically going on in the brain that they may not have picked up yet. So it may not even just be that. So you come from that angle of, look, I really do care, and you do, and that's what we do it for. We want to help people. Right. So sometimes I've had to do that. That's kind of like the mental sort of broom to try and clean up, the mess that has been left by someone who's gone, no, I think it's demonic and you need to go and have an exorcism. So it's, like, no, this is going to be fun. You really just feel like you might as well just be a lawyer.
Yeah. And you hit something really important there. You have to want to help people if you're going to do this stuff. And I tell you what, I'm sure you have it in Australia, maybe not as much, but here in the States, everybody wants to run with all their gadgets and everything else, and maybe they find something, and maybe it's not so nice, and they have no idea what to do with it, and they say, well, you're haunted by, and they take off and leave people flap. They're not equipped to deal with either psychological or the energy, spiritual energy connotation. Either they don't have anybody who's a psychology background, they don't have somebody with the I practice shamanism, so that's one of the things I often do, and I've got other people I know, Reiki people do the same thing, and we can deal with the energy stuff. But yeah, so many people and I swear there are more paranormal teams, and that Wes, I think it's growing every day. Every time I turn around, I get these things on Facebook, like this paranormal team. I say, oh, gosh, they're all over the place. Because in Kentucky.
There's one on every block in Kentucky.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the field might be expanding, but I'm just wondering if it's more a matter. I mean, I still see it because when I was doing Paranormal Filler, I was still seeing a lot of people, new groups, family units. But I think a lot of it too is I think people are shuffling around a lot too. In other words,
They will do that, yeah.
This group split up, but a couple of them still wanted to do paranormal, so they found some new people, and moved on to another group. I just can't imagine. Oh, I know a lot of the groups that were around 5 years ago are not around now. Right.
No, they lose interest, and they don't get famous, and because that's what so many are in for, because they don't care about the people. They want to be on television. They go 5 years and not on TV, so they say to hell with it, and they quit doing it, which is good. They shouldn't be doing it anyway.
Exactly. And it happens here in Australia. You'd be surprised how many similar things that happen with group dynamics and locations, and people getting into one location, another team upset that they've got the exclusivity of that, and then some teams have turned around to say, well, you're charging too much, how dare you, it's not that expensive for that location. And just it happens in Australia too. It happens here as well.
Yep. We just had one thing here where a team went in, and it's a guy I know that did this big Facebook thing on it. Team went in, charged these folks who were not rich by any sense of the word, charged them $275, and there is supposedly something very wrong going on there, and left and never gave them the tapes, never gave them the evidence, gave them nothing, and then somebody came in and charged them $300 to do a house cleansing. I about lost my mind, and what happened is that a bunch of people got together, and a bunch of us contributed, and just as concerned people in the field, and they, a GoFundMe page, they came up with $400, and gave to these folks. I don't know if they took it. I think they donated, but it was just everybody was just so upset. But of course, these guys got trounced on Facebook so bad they took their site down and the whole nine.
Yeah. There'd be massive backlash with that. But another thing I want. Sorry, you were going. Yes, sorry.
No, I mean, it's just it's hard to see, and I know you see the same sort of thing there.
Of course. And that's another thing I'm wanting to look at starting to do, is actually rolling out information for people who are looking to have paranormal investigators. So, say, for instance, in a situation like that, are they charging? Have they got proof of what they're going to do for that charge? Have you filled out a confidentiality form? Have they given you a form and some information about their processes? Are they insured? Are they this? Before you even remotely get somebody into your home or look at your case. It's actually, educating the general public that needs to start to happen to stop this kind of stuff happening, because, we're not licensed, we're not governed by anything, so we need to help try and educate from the other side. And so that's another big push I'm trying to put together as well. So fingers crossed that does come out in the next 6 to 12 months. Fingers crossed. I've got a couple of people I'm working with in mind with that too.
Oh, there you go. Okay, good. So what plans for the future do you have, Beth?
Oh my goodness. Well, apart from being enormously rich.
Well, you're in the right field for that.
Exactly. $300 for spirit clearing. No. I'm working on a membership site at the moment, so it's actually going to be all practical information, how-to videos, forms people can fill out, starter packs, all this sort of stuff. Is actually going to be, and fingers crossed this can actually work out. I'm just looking at the logistics of it, where you can actually, if someone's feeling certain symptoms, of what plausible explanations there'll be for that. So if someone's got headaches, have they got? It'll then go to the next thing. Have you checked out this? Have you done this? Have this? So it just makes it easier for people to actually start to look at logical ways of working out what's happening in someone's home. But lots of really interactive stuff, like group calls as well, where people bring their photo. Like a really good, healthy environment for people to actually say, I think I've reported something, not really sure. Hey, it could be this. It is all about the approach. we all know those old photos. We all know those ones that are blurry on camera cords, and we've seen it so many times. But getting annoyed and really angry at people when they put it out originally is not the way to go. It's all about approach. You gently educate someone. Again, as we know, if their intention is not to be educated, fine, no worries. Walk away, walk away. Don't bother. Just know your battles. Go, that's cool, dude. Just chill. We're happy. It's fine. But if they wanted to know and actually have somebody who says, I care about you getting the right information, then this can be, this actually may not be this, and this is why. So I've got 3 little online courses at the moment about, three areas to look at possible explanations, the core ones. And that's from all the queries I used to get. I thought I want to put a series together where I can actually teach people, actually, before you send this through to me, have a look at what could be causing it. Not everybody does it, that's fine. It's all about choice, but some people do, and they're grateful for it. So, so working on that kind of stuff as well, lots of speaking engagements, Scarefest being one of them. I've got a workshop happening in a couple of months in a little town called Alatia, which is not too far from here. So we've got a paranormal weekend away there. And, of course, the Australian Skeptics Convention, which is happening in October. So one of the very few, if I think maybe the only paranormal investigator that's actually ever been invited in its 34-year history, personally invited to be on a panel discussion about paranormal topics. So it's going to be interesting. I think I need to wear my bulletproof vest, but at the end of the day, I've met wonderful skeptics as well. As long as everyone's open-minded, then that should be fine. And I'm actually really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that sounds great. Can't wait to see you in September.
It's going to be so much fun.
Fun time, I know it.
Bulletproof vest. I didn't think you all were allowed to have guns in Australia. I read that on Facebook somewhere.
No, we don't. We're not. Well, out in the country they do. They do because of all the whole, livestock and blah 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 stuff. But we're gun free here.
Well, I do have one more question from the chat room before we let you go. What is the drink of choice in Australia? What does everybody imbibe in there? What's the hot thing?
Oh my goodness. Gosh, it really depends where you go. I work in the city of Sydney, and I live a little bit further out, so it's very different there to what it is even here. Cooper's beer is a big one. Cooper's beer is a South Australian made beer, so a lot of people drink Cooper's. Believe it or not, Coronas as well. So it's not very Australian. A lot of people like Jack Daniels and Coke. That's another one too. I say, when I go to other parts of America and I go bourbon and Coke, they go, what? I'm like, JD and Coke. They don't often refer to it as bourbon and whiskey, and then they kind of whiskey with Coke. It's sacrilegious. Then there's that. There's all different types. But generally, I think it's a lot of people drink Cooper's is what it is. It's not Foster's. A lot of people think
Foster's lager.
Not Foster's, mate. Not Foster's. No Foster's over here. Everyone doesn't like it. It's
send it all over here. Yeah.
I'm certainly glad we cleared that up for Jake in the chat room. Everybody, this has been Scarefest Radio. We've had a lot of fun tonight. We've been talking to Beth Darlingrton. She is presenting at the Scarefest this year, Demonic Possession, Possible Alternative Explanations. We already have a guest book next week. It's just going to fly by, everybody. And we're in the home stretch now. June, July, and August. Then September, it's here. So we are flying now. Everybody, this has been Scarefest Radio.